POV, you're a corrupt judge. You took the oath on a Tuesday morning. Your hand was raised. Your family was in the front row. You meant every word. That's important. Because the story people tell afterward is simpler than the one you actually lived. People prefer villains who were always villains. The truth is harder. You weren't corrupt. Not at first. You spent 8 years as a public defender. You represented people who couldn't afford representation. You worked late. Missed birthdays. Missed weekends. Lost cases you should have won. Won cases nobody expected. You believed the law mattered. You believed justice was imperfect but worth pursuing. You believed that enough to build your entire life around it. Then you became a judge. And for 11 years, you did the job exactly the way you promised you would. Until one day you didn't. The first offer came in your second year on the bench. A businessman facing fraud charges. His attorney approached you through an intermediary. A simple proposition. Money in exchange for leniency. You refused immediately. Reported it. Documented everything. The man went to prison. You slept fine that night. The system worked. You were proud of that. The second offer arrived 2 years later. Nothing about the offer was different. You were. Your son had gotten sick. Not a cold. Not something temporary. The kind of diagnosis that changes every conversation in your house. The kind of diagnosis that turns money into oxygen. Insurance covered part of it. Your salary covered part of it. The gap sat in front of you every month like a loaded weapon. You were drowning slowly. And nobody could see it. Then a defense attorney named Garrett asked you to lunch. 3 blocks from the courthouse. Normal place. Normal table. Normal conversation. Until it wasn't. His client was guilty. Everyone knew it. The evidence was overwhelming. The sentencing guidelines were clear. But guidelines aren't handcuffs. Judges have discretion. Garrett needed you to use yours. He offered $40,000. Cash. Cleanly delivered. Untraceable. You listened. You thought about your son. You thought about hospital bills. You thought about the treatment schedule pinned to your refrigerator. You thought for 60 seconds. Then you crossed a line. The sentence should have been 3 years. You gave 14 months. Your written justification was thin. But legal. Technically defensible. That's the dangerous part. Corruption almost never looks illegal on paper. It looks reasonable. That's why it survives. The money arrived 2 weeks later. You told yourself it was temporary. Just this once. Just until things stabilized. Just until your son got better. Every bad decision begins with the word just. Marcus noticed. Your clerk. 26 years old. Brilliant. Idealistic. The version of you from 20 years ago. He reviewed your sentencing memo. Asked questions. Professional questions. Smart questions. The kind of questions that made your stomach tighten. You answered them. He nodded. Then walked away. You watched him leave your office knowing he wasn't convinced. And somehow that bothered you more than taking the money. Garrett returned 6 months later. Then again. Then another attorney came. Then another. Each arrangement slightly larger than the last. 40,000 became 70. 70 became 90. 90 became 150. The numbers stopped feeling shocking. That's how corruption works. It doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives gradually enough that each step feels survivable. Your son got better. The treatments worked. Not perfectly, but enough. The financial emergency ended. The money kept coming. And that's when you learn something about yourself. The bills were never the entire reason. They were just the first reason. Years passed. You became skilled at it. Careful. Precise. Professional. Never acquittals. Never outrageous decisions. Only sentences. Only discretion. Only rulings that could survive scrutiny. You convinced yourself nobody was getting hurt. You convinced yourself the system was too broken to notice. You convinced yourself of many things. People usually do. Marcus left when his clerkship ended. Handshake. Congratulations. Professional smiles. Neither of you saying what mattered. You never saw him again. At least not socially. The investigation began somewhere else. It always does. A county corruption probe. A suspicious payment. A financial audit. A lawyer talking when he shouldn't. One loose thread. Then another. Then another. Eventually every thread led back to you. You found out before the public did. A courtesy call from someone you knew. A warning. Get a lawyer. Now. You sat alone in chambers after the call. Not panicking. Not strategizing. Just remembering. The oath. The courtroom. The younger version of yourself. The one who believed in all of this. You wondered when exactly he disappeared. You couldn't find the answer. Federal agents arrived 3 months later. Interviews. Subpoenas. Bank records. Email records. Phone records. Years of carefully hidden decisions suddenly visible. One by one. Marcus came to see you. Not as a clerk. Not as a colleague. Just as a man who needed confirmation. He stood across your office. Looked at you. And asked one question. Was Garrett the only one? You looked down. Then back at him. And said no. The disappointment on his face hurt more than anything the prosecutors would eventually do. You resigned. Quietly. No press conference. No speech. No defense. Just a 3-sentence letter. After 11 years on the bench. It ended in 3 sentences. You cooperated. Named everyone. Returned the money. Lost your law license. Lost your judgeship. Lost your reputation. The prison sentence never came. The plea deal prevented that. Some people called you lucky. You never agreed. Years later you're 53. Living in the same house. Driving the same roads. Looking at the same courthouse from a distance. Only now you're outside it. Forever. Your son is healthy. That's the complicated part. The treatments worked. The money helped. You can't pretend otherwise. You also can't pretend that justifies anything. Some equations don't balance. no matter how long you stare at them. You occasionally lecture law students now. Not as a judge. Not as an attorney. As a cautionary tale. The man who crossed a line and kept walking. They listen carefully. More carefully than they probably listen to successful people. Failure has a way of holding attention. Sometimes you think about Marcus. He's a defense attorney now. Respected. Successful. Everything you once hoped to be. You follow his career from a distance. Never reaching out. Never interfering. Just watching. Hoping. You still remember the number. 431. The number of people you sentenced. The number never left. Not because of the corruption. Because numbers matter. Judges know that. Every sentence is a number. Every decision is a number. Every consequence is a number. The problem is that some numbers keep growing long after the case is closed. And some sentences turn out to be your own.